Hey there, folks! Everyone on Earth has an opinion about whether they are lucky or not. However, sometimes there is no doubt that luck has been on your side. Today, we will talk about this type of situation. Make yourself comfortable because you're about to hear 6 amazing stories about incredibly lucky people. Let's get it on. The happiest moment in Matthew Bryce's life was when he heard the helicopter over his head, because the 32 hours before that were worse than a horror movie. A few minutes earlier, the man thought he had admired the last sunset of his life. He even thought that the helicopter would leave, and he was so scared. But let's start from the beginning. This story began on an ordinary Sunday morning in 2017. Young Matthew Bryce from Airdrie, North Lanarkshire, Scotland, went out to the seacoast. He wanted to indulge in his favorite hobby, surfing, so he waxed his board and went to ride some waves. He could not have imagined that the wind and the current would take him far away from the shore. Matthew tried to get closer to the shore to no avail. There was even a moment when he was still paddling, even though he knew it was useless, but the movement at least helped him stay warm. When a fishing boat appeared on the horizon, hope filled his heart, but it quickly vanished, as did the boat. The fisherman didn't see Matthew. Eventually, the waves dragged Bryce 21 kilometers off the coast of Scotland. Loneliness and despair were draining him because for 32 hours there was nothing but water around, until the helicopter appeared. Matthew knew he would not survive another night in the open sea, so the rescuers arrived just in time. On Monday, around 8:30 p.m., fortune finally smiled on Matthew. Will he continue to surf after this? No, he says he doesn't want to anymore. We don't know about you, but we have come to the following conclusion. Spending time in the water, whether at sea or in the ocean, is quite risky. While most people are afraid of sharks, Rainer Shim has discovered that whales are just as dangerous, even those who only eat small fish. The second person in our video was diving near Port Elizabeth in South Africa in February this year. His plan was to film a sardine run, but suddenly, a huge bride's whale emerged. And then, before Rainer had time to think or do anything, he found himself in the dark, tightly pressed around his waist. It turned out that Rainer was not the only one interested in the sardines. The whale was swimming by and decided to eat some fish, but accidentally swallowed a human. Fortunately for Rainer, whales are unable to swallow a person, no matter how hard they try, because their throats are too narrow. So Rainer ended up trapped in the jaws of the massive mammal. In a matter of seconds, the clever animal realized its mistake and freed the man. Shim himself says he felt as if he had been pushed out by tons of water in the whale's mouth. Only after he got out did the man realize the danger he had been in. First, he could have easily suffocated. Secondly, the weight of these whales reaches 30 tons. For such a huge animal, it is quite easy to accidentally break something in the human body. But Rainer Shim would not be in our video if his story had ended sadly. Surprisingly, the man survived with a mere scare, and in exchange, he got himself a story to tell his future grandchildren. Most people who go to a restaurant know that their wallet will weigh less after their dinner. However, Rick Antosh of New Jersey is an exception to the rule. Why? Because late last year, this man ordered and then ate the best oyster pan roast of his life. Rick Antosh was in the middle of a fascinating conversation with his friend at a restaurant when he suddenly felt something unusual in his mouth. It was a round, solid object. At first, a black dot on one side of the object confused Rick. The man thought it was a tooth or part of some kitchen appliance.
It's 100%.
Oh my God. Oh my God. No.
But the object turned out to be much more interesting. Rick had found a real pearl in the oyster. The chef at the restaurant pointed out how lucky he was to find such a valuable object. He'd been cooking oysters for 28 years, but during all this time, Rick was only the second person to find a pearl in his dish. The price of the find was several $1,000s, much more expensive than Rick's dinner. However, he's not going to sell the trophy. He says he will keep it as a souvenir.
No.
The pearl will now be his lucky charm. This story began on July 7th, 2018. Angela Hernandez, 23, left Portland, Oregon to visit her family in California. The trip shouldn't have been too long. However, the young woman did not make it to her destination that day. She didn't show up the next day or the day after. The last message she sent to her sister simply said she was on her way. It wasn't until a week later that Angela was able to talk about what had happened that day, and the fact that she could talk was extremely lucky. It turned out that when she was already driving through California, the girl saw a small animal in the middle of the road. The abrupt turn caused the car to drift off the road. In addition, the Jeep rolled over the rocks, falling from a height of about 60 meters. All Angela remembers afterwards is an excruciating pain all over her body and water on her legs. The Jeep landed on a rocky shore, hidden by steep rocks. Miraculously, the girl found enough strength to break the window and get out of the car. When she reached the shore, she immediately lost consciousness. At the time, she did not know that she would have to spend 7 long days alone at the crash site. All this time, Angela was exposed to the scorching sun. She was thirsty, hungry, and her whole body hurt. The most terrible thing about the situation was that there were people very close by. Angela saw the cars passing above. She screamed as loud as she could.
Don't come back! Come back! Please! Please help me!
But her voice couldn't be heard from above. Help came almost at the last minute. A couple, who were exploring the area, stumbled across the car. When Chad and Chelsea Moore found Angela among the rocks, she thought it was a delusion. Of course, after that, the woman was rescued and taken to the hospital. She is alive, although she suffered some fairly serious injuries during the fall. This is a story that's hard to believe. Earlier last year, a young resident of Mobile, Alabama, almost said goodbye to his life. Trenton McKinley, 13, fell from a car trailer which flipped over. All he remembers is that he fell on the concrete and then a piece of metal hit his head. After that, a 2-month blackout. During that time, the teenager was unconscious in the hospital after the doctors miraculously brought him back to life. However, the situation remained critical. The doctors even had to warn the parents that their son would never be the same again. The boy's brain lacked oxygen, so he was dying slowly. It took Trenton's parents 2 months to make a tough decision. If their son didn't recover and the doctors wanted to turn off life support devices, then at least he should help other people. There are too many children in the world who need an urgent organ transplant. At that time, there were up to 5 candidates for the boy's organs. Trenton's parents signed an agreement for their son to become a donor, and that's when life proved once again just how unpredictable it can be.
Oh my God.
Where am I?
Oh, relax. Everything's okay, man.
Miraculously, little Trenton defeated death. His brain began to show signs of life. The teenager began to breathe without help and then regained consciousness. Fortune smiled on Trenton when death wanted to drag him along. Now you can see the healthy child recovering quickly.
All right.
It may seem strange, but criminals, even a century after their death, managed to generate large amounts of money. Jesse James is a famous gangster who terrorized the United States in the 19th century. He robbed banks, trains, companies, and had his own gang.
We were raiders, and we're gonna do some raiding together. Who are you?
We're bank examiners. Fill it, nobody gets hurt.
However, his crimes had nothing to do with the money we are going to talk about. Robert Barron and Karen Wilhelm are antique collectors. Their house is full of photos and paintings of people they never met. They have them just because these pictures were made a long time ago. At the end of last year, Robert and Karen were searching the internet for old and interesting things as usual. That's when they found this photo. It was up for $15 in a virtual garage sale. It looks like a random photo, and there's nothing special about it, right? 2 weeks after the purchase, the salesman called Robert to tell him an incredible story. Someone contacted him and told him that the man in the photo was identical to the famous criminal Jesse James. Of course, Robert didn't believe him. It was too strange a coincidence. Just in case, however, the couple decided to look at James's photos on their own. To their surprise, the man turned out to be very much like that criminal. Then Robert and Karen contacted an expert from Los Angeles. He checked the photo with a special facial recognition program. Surprisingly, the similarity between the two faces was 80%.
Oh, come on, not this thing, really?
Brian, it's me, Stewie. Shoot him! No, Brian, you know me. Look at me. Shoot him!
As such, there is a high probability that the man on the picture is actually Jesse James. What does that mean? The price of the photograph is no longer $15, but over $2 million. That's how people became millionaires without even bothering to buy lottery tickets. Believe in luck, and it will always be with you. See you soon.